So Andy and I both got to see Doctor Strange a few days ago. And actually, I'll start again. So Andy and I both got to see Doctor Strange a couple of days ago in ahead of any of the reviews yet. So it was always interesting to see what people were going to say about it. We are going to be very careful and try not to spoil some of the big giveaways. So what shall we do, Andy? How do you want to play this?
I think if we talk about it non-spoilerific, and then what we'll do is we'll talk about some of the spoiler stuff separately, which will be tagged on to the end of the show. That way, if people don't want the spoilers, then once you get to the end of the show and you hear that famous theme tune of ours, stop the recording there.
Okay, that's fair. You don't have to listen to spoilers. Actually, I've been quite disturbed since this movie came out, seeing the amount of giveaways in some of the reviews, which is very disappointing.
Yeah.
Yes, some of them said spoilers, but if you want to know what a movie's like, because sometimes that's your in to whether you think you're going to go and see it. So we're very clear about it. There will be no spoilers in this portion of it. Okay, so the plot. After encountering a girl, American Chavez. After encountering a girl, American Chavez, who has the power to traverse the multiverse, Doctor Strange turns to Wanda Maximoff for advice and help with fighting off the monstrous, mysterious entity that is on the girl's trail. However, it seems that Wanda, also now known as the Scarlet Witch, has her own plans, and one that is going to jeopardize the very multiverse itself. So, Andy and I tried not to talk about this, so I don't know how similar or dissimilar our choices are. I'm going to start with some of the positives for me, and I think Andy will just jump in all over the place and discuss it rather than try and do our own version of it. So I think for me, this is the first time that a Marvel film needed right at the top end, previously on Doctor Strange, as this is a direct sequel to WandaVision to a degree.
Yes, this it's not just a direct sequel. You can see it as an epilogue to that series. Anyone going into this blind who's never seen any MCU, not seen any of the TV series, and was just thinking, a bit of 2 hours of escapism, is going to sit there completely confused as to anything going on. This is not a film that panders to people who haven't caught up. This just throws you straight in and expects you to roll with it. If anything, that kind of worked. That worked slightly as a negative for me.
Me too. Again, I think we're in agreement. I mean, you've got to have seen WandaVision. You've got to have seen Spider-Man: No Way Home, and to a degree, you've got to have seen What If, because there's a reoccurring character from the What If show. The first Doctor Strange, the Steve Derrickson one, was a well-contained origin movie that made us want to see more of Doctor Strange, and that's what I wanted to see with this movie. I wanted to see more of the adventures of Doctor Strange without it bleeding out into the rest of the MCU. I'm finding the films I'm enjoying most at the moment are the films that are standalones.
Yeah.
I don't need every film to be related, as I don't need every comic to be related to another series. I remember the days, especially 90s comics, where you had to buy an X-Men comic and then see that follow up in Wolverine, to then see that follow up in half a dozen other titles. It feels a little bit like that.
Yeah, if you keep that comic book analogy, then this feels like it was a crossover event where you had to read some crossover titles, but they've not given us them. Yeah, look at the comic book of Civil War, which was 8 issues, but you had to have read 400 other issues from other titles in order to get the full story. And that's what this feels like. It feels like Civil War the comic, because Civil War the comic was battle after battle after battle after battle. You had to get the story elsewhere. And this film picks up straight at the start. I mean, we start off almost slow with a wedding, but straight away thrust into an action sequence. And then it doesn't let up. It just rolls from one event after another with no moment to breathe until the final confrontation. And that's my problem. This is we know that this is a short Marvel film. It's 2 hours 6 minutes, including end credits. They're normally 2 hours 20 to 2 hours 30, sometimes 2 hours 40. And this is the first time that I've left a Marvel film thinking that needed more to it. Not, I would have liked to have seen more, which I've had with, there's so many Marvel films that I've loved so much. It was like, I'd have sat through another hour of that. This is, I needed this to have more. It needed to have maybe 20 more minutes to slow itself down, allow us to care, particularly about America Chavez, who kind of gets sidelined when you feel that she should have been the lead focus for the film.
Yeah, I
She ends
totally agree.
she ends up being a MacGuffin. She ends up being a living, breathing MacGuffin because she has nothing to her, because it feels that everything about her was cut and left to one side just to keep it rapidly flowing through the film.
So what we get is we get set piece followed by set piece followed by set piece. And as you said, there's not much in the way of room to breathe between the set pieces. And let's be honest, the set pieces, all in all, are pretty spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
One is one of the most inventive things I think I've seen on screen, which is when Doctor Strange weaponizes the notes from a sheet of piano music and tosses them around like weapons, which is whimsical and daring and unique. It reminded me a little bit, strangely enough, of Roger Corman's The Raven when Vincent Price and Boris Karloff are battling. But it was the more low key moments because it moves at such a pace that you are just bombarded. Now, from what I've heard from contacts out there, that there was a 3-hour cut that Sam Raimi delivered for this. And okay, so 3 hours is a long time, but cut it down, of course, but leave the beats, leave the emotion, leave time to move on to the next sequence because it is just relentless. Now, it's an amazingly visual movie, and it's an amazingly visual movie, and Sam Raimi is given the role to be Sam Raimi. So anybody's worried when you step into it that has he been neutered? Absolutely not. And there are moments which are just pure. I'm going to use the word horror. Horror
Yes.
Sam Raimi. Very reminiscent of The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 3.
Yep. Sam Raimi through and through in this. You've got his skewed camera angles, his zip pans, his horror themes. This film is the first MCU film that I think really taps into the darker edges of the Marvel Universe, albeit at a 12A level. So there's no blood, there's no gore, but there's moments of, shall we say, charred and screaming folk, as well as deaths on screen and undeath on screen. All this in amongst the energetic fun and many blink and you'll miss it moments. It's definitely close to horror. Some people say, how can you have a horror at 12A rating? Does everyone forget films such as The Woman in Black that shows that horror doesn't have to be highly rated?
Yeah.
If you can tap into the darker elements, you don't have to have arms and decapitation and blood and guts and entrails. That's not horror. Horror is something that chills, frightens, scares, and that can be done at a 12A level. And I think he's done a great job of it because I'd think twice about taking someone under the age of 8 to see this film.
Yeah, absolutely. We've sort of set out our stall to be very negative about it. I had a good time with this, and it's a roller coaster ride. It really is. And some of the positives are Benedict Cumberbatch, who is just charisma on. Sorry,
you always say Cumberbatch.
I'll start that again then. So it sounds like we are being particularly negative, and there are a lot of positives to take away from this. Let's start with the cast. Cumberbatch is charming as ever in the lead role. He can be funny, he can do tragedy, as we know, and he can certainly do the heroic, and let you believe in Doctor Strange as a character. There were moments that I wanted again to see explored, which is his decision that he had to come to help defeat Thanos, and letting the woman that he loves get away. And I thought it was fantastic to see Rachel McAdams because she was so underused in the first movie.
Yeah.
Return and be given something to do. Elizabeth Olsen explores a very different side to Wanda, but something that we'd been hinted at before, and shines through with a role that is. She walks a delicate path with it, and of course, because she's so good, she succeeds. But she's not given enough at the beginning of the film to lead us into the decisions that she's making. And again, if you've not seen WandaVision, you're kind of out there. Got to point out that what's he called? Who was the other Benedict? Benedict Wong.
Benedict Wong.
Got to point out Benedict Wong is always a delight when he's on screen, and his rapport with Doctor Strange and with Cumberbatch is excellent. So there are many things that are positives about it, and I didn't have a good time with it. I had a really enjoyable time. It just feels noisy. It feels too quickly paced, and therefore it's a bit like anything. When you speed it up, you miss the subtleties, and it feels a little bit messy. But I do hope, and I really do hope that clearly they are looking at a third film that they bring Raimi back for it.
Yeah, same as you. I rate this alongside the first Doctor Strange film, which I consider a mid-tier Marvel film.
Okay, I think it's a little bit underrated, personally.
It was enjoyable. I had a good time watching it, and yeah, it's got a great Danny Elfman score. I do love Danny Elfman's score in this. He does little nods and beats and references to some of the cameo moments as they take place, and the cameos. We'll talk more about them at the end of the show, but don't believe everything that you heard out there on the leak world over the past few months. And I think that's one of the biggest problems this film's got, is that over the past couple of months, people have built up this idea of what this film will be in their head based on rumours, leaks, fan speculation. And it will never live up to that. It's also following hotly on the footsteps of a film that did similar things on the Spider-Verse aspect. And I don't think it's as enjoyable as that film. And some people will sadly say that this is a garbage film because it doesn't live up to what Spider-Man was. It's not a garbage film. It's a cracking piece of entertainment. It's well shot. Like you've said before, the action is so well done. There's some moments visually that you just want to revisit the film just to see these action beats play out again, because you couldn't take it all in one go. I just feel that it was too tightly packed together. I wanted it to tell a story a bit better, and I wanted it to do more justice to the character of America Chavez, who I know the potential of because I love the comics, and I feel that she was underplayed in this film.
Yeah, I want to see a third film now, which has opened up the horror door, and we get a sequel to Doctor Strange as opposed to world beating, as opposed to world building, and that's always when Marvel doesn't land with me, when it's considering world building the universe as opposed to telling just a great story.
Yeah. So that's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, playing at all cinemas at the moment, including one in New York City, which is showing 70 shows per day, apparently. Get yourself down to the cinema, enjoy it. But like I say, if you've got really young uns and they can kind of get scared quite easily, maybe consider not taking them along. This is a 12A for a reason. 12A means that you should take some parental responsibility because there might be some dark matter in here. And there's some very, very dark and scary moments. So let's do the post credits. Our post credits reveal. We are very Marvel this week.
We are.
So thank you for sticking around. That means that you're happy for us to spoil stuff, or you've already seen Doctor Strange yourself, and you want to hear what our thoughts are on some of the reveals. So, shall we start with the Illuminati?
Well, yeah. I mean, we are going to reveal quite a lot, but to be honest, I think whoever the marketing department did, and Kevin Feige himself is not pleased with how much has got spoiled in this. It is a very difficult there are some genuine surprises, and some surprises that really, really should have been left until the viewing. But okay, and I think while I liked this, I like the Illuminati idea. Again, it felt like a sequence that if you were to take
Yes.
that out, it wouldn't have changed the outlook of the series. Sorry, if you were to take that start again. If you were to take that whole sequence out, it wouldn't have changed the story and the narrative of the movie.
Yeah.
So yes, plenty of fan services, but difficult because I enjoyed it. I mean, I actually had a
Yeah.
silly grin on my face when we saw some of those characters in the flesh, and uh, but analyzing it afterwards, it didn't matter if they were there or not.
Yeah. Seeing how the scene plays out, and I didn't pick it up at the time, but when I was thinking about it afterwards, the scene was played out as though it was like and now introducing, da da da, here's a big reveal. And like you say, the marketing spoilt a lot of the reveals. A lot of the leaks and the TV spots have pretty much spoilt everything. And it kind of, you could see that it was framed in such a way to be, you reveal one and you go, oh, then it reveals another, and then it leads up to, and here's Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier. But we already knew that was happening, so why do such a build up? But
Yeah.
we got to see the best bit of fan casting come to light, and I was quite pleased that I did not know this in advance. They'd
Yes.
been rumoured, but I dismissed so many rumours because at the end of the day, it was rumoured that Tom Cruise was in this film, and he wasn't. It was rumoured that there was going to be an alternate version of Iron Man in here. There wasn't. But we got to see John Krasinski as Reed Richards, and my heart leapt because I instantly thought, surely when they go for a Fantastic Four movie, they're going to stick with him.
They have to, don't they? They built it on the back of that. This close to a Fantastic Four movie coming out, to have Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski, the fan favorite, and they kept it under wraps. And you know what? I looked over to you, and we both had big, silly grins on our faces because it was like the time when you saw Hawkeye in Thor, and
Yeah,
you went, "Oh my God, it's Hawkeye! It's Hawkeye! Oh my God!"
yeah.
The Captain Carter character appears, and again, nicely placed into What If, and Captain Marvel, played by Letitia.
One second.
Not Letitia Jones, is it?
Bum, 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 bum.
Letitia Wright? No,
No, that's Captain Marvel.
that's the other.
Lashana Lynch.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you saw Captain Marvel, Lashana Lynch, appear, and then, and I just felt they were doing the guy right after that disastrous TV series. You got Anson Mount reprising his role from the dreadful TV series as Black Bolt,
Yes.
looking like Black Bolt. And you know what? I want to see Black Bolt now, and I want to see Black Bolt played by Anson Mount because it was the role he was born to play. That, and of course, Christopher Pike now,
Yeah.
and it was a wonderful little moment. Yes, it was fan service. As I said, you could
It,
take the scene out, and nothing would change the outcome of the story.
I mean, as Professor X wheels into view, hovers into view in a bright yellow wheelchair, ripped straight from that 1990s animated series.
And
Um,
even had the music from the series
the
play.
music, Danny Elfman's little nod of like, and it's like, oh, yeah. And you couldn't help as a fan of all these properties to just feel like excitement build up as they're all revealed. Yes, it's an unnecessary scene. Yes, it adds nothing to the film, but it was pure fan servicing that I kind of embraced. Anson Mount, so many people at work was like, "Who was Black Bolt?" It's like Anson Mount. It's like, why? It was like, "Oh, you didn't watch the TV series, did you?" I was that one person who watched the series all the way through, and
You and
I
I saw the
wanted to
pilot
see him. Yeah, and it was bad.
on
It
IMAX.
wasn't great, but he was great throughout it. He played Black Bolt through that series perfectly, playing a silent character and being able to convey everything. Wow, what an actor! And it was nice, like you say, it was a really nice nod to bring him back for it. But it's for Krasinski. I mean, yeah, let's be honest. I'm hyped and stoked for the idea of the Fantastic Four. They're my favorite Marvel family. They've been my favorite Marvel comic since day one. And I can't wait to see the big screen outing. And if they get John Krasinski, come on, it's got to be his wife who plays Sue Storm.
Yes, absolutely. It feels set up to do that. I always thought that Benedict Cumberbatch was fan casting. It was almost so obvious to play Doctor
Yeah.
Strange, and they really listened to what the fans had been calling for. But it worked. It was a double-edged sword. One that we just thoroughly enjoyed it. We saw that, and we saw Patrick Stewart get to do something other than just sit in the chair. And we got all the characters in a fight scene, and it just proved how difficult the Scarlet Witch sorry. It just proved how powerful that the Scarlet Witch was becoming in that scene, that she could defeat all those characters. But
I mean, these are characters who were supposed to have taken out Thanos, and she just basically gets rid of them like that. That's how
I guess that's
powerful the
magic for
Scarlet
you.
Witch is.
Mm.
That's magic. And then we get another reveal in the mid-credit sting.
Okay, and again, this is where, not with the mid credit sting, but I didn't understand how it flowed from the ending of the movie. Now, as a fan, I thought the mid credit sting ticked all the boxes.
Yes, because you get the reveal of Charlize Theron as Clea, who's mistress of the dark dimension. She's Dormammu's stepdaughter.
Can't remember. I mean, she's been in it since the Steve Ditko era. She has been strangers on and off, love interest all the way through. And even when they were making Doctor Strange, it was hinted that even when they were filming Doctor Strange, it was speculated that that's who Rachel McAdam was going to be playing, because she's integral to the Doctor Strange mythos. So it was fantastic. And again, you and I going, is that Charlize Theron? Is it? I don't know.
But yeah, she just steps out to just basically take him on an exploration into the dark dimension, because that's the portal that she opens behind her. And like you say, it kind of doesn't quite sit nicely with how the film itself ended, because the film itself ended with him strolling down the street, all happy, save the world, and then dropping to the ground in pain as his third eye pops out. And then we're just suddenly, and now he's strolling down the street and things happened and he's fine with it. It's like, what's happened? What have I missed? And I get the feeling again, we've missed a huge chunk of exposition and story and detail. But you know what? Just for that mid-credit sting, it's one of those mid-credit stings as well that I love as a comic book fan, but also hate as a comic book fan, because it means that all the people who don't read comics are now asking me what on earth that was about. And I've now got to explain it for the next few weeks. Yeah. But it's great. They're back to doing Marvel mid-credit stings, that if you're just a general audience member who's never read a comic book in your life, you're just going to sit there baffled and confused. And then we get to the final end credits sting, which is it's the cameo that everyone knew was going to be happening. It's a Sam Raimi film. Of course, Bruce Campbell is in the film. And he's in it earlier on as a street vendor who Doctor Strange does a spell on. So he starts hitting himself. And then this end credit bit.
Campbell.
Oh, man. I've loved watching audience reactions to this over the past weekend, because about a third of the audience find it funny and love it. Everyone else looks at it going, what have I just sat through all that for this? Because if you're under the age of, I'd say 35, you're probably not going to actually care that it's a reference to, I mean, it's clearly him hitting himself is a reference to the Evil Dead escapades
Yeah.
when his hand took control. And he just slaps himself a few more times and then stops and goes, ha, ha, and then looks straight at the camera as the camera jerks in close to him. And he just tells the audience, it's over, and cuts to black. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. As a fan of Bruce Campbell, it was exactly what I expected Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell to do as a little like, ha, we've got end credit stings and they're useless. It was a great little fun moment, but your general audience are just not getting it.
No. So I think ultimately, I think we can both say, and Andy, I don't want to speak for you, that we enjoyed it. We had a lot of
Yeah.
fun. We
think-
were at times blown away.
I think with this little extra bit at the end where we've been able to talk about spoilers, I think it's more apparent how much we did enjoy the film than what we were in the main review, where we had to be careful about what we were saying, because what we enjoyed were these fun moments that are spoilers. I enjoyed Scarlet Witch being a true villain.
Yeah, and
She
she
went
is.
completely dark, and having her be the main bad guy, it was a great redemptive kind of. It was a perfect finish to her arc as a character, and how she finishes at the end, where she sacrifices her own self in this universe in order for the other Scarlet Witches or Wanders throughout the multiverse to not have to go dark, was a great redemptive moment.
And if they want to bring her back, they could possibly do that, because we didn't actually see her perish, did they? And also the fact that they called her Wanda Maximoff in this one as well for the first time. I think Raimi injects enough Sam Raimiisms, his macabre fun into it, and style that pushes it into a darker corner of the Marvel universe. It's an uneven script, but it is an entertaining watch ultimately, and it's engaging. The performances are all good. When it hits those emotional beats, it hits it perfectly, and it also has some truly bizarre moments, but it's just uneven. I almost wish that they'd left in that additional footage and let the movie just breathe a little bit and give itself space. And then those wow moments, we could have sat back afterwards and gone, oh my goodness, as opposed to here comes the next moment.